How do we even know what is real anymore? Is this me or is it somebody else?
Is this even my real voice?
Maybe this is just my AI clone.
We live in a wild time in human history when we can transform ourselves to be
anything we want.
and we fake it till we make it. But the question still remains, what is real? Just knowing that we have the ability to manipulate the things we share breaks down trust in what is real. Deep down, we know everyone has an angle. Ads for clothing, electronics, your phones, they are selling us happiness, or it's a certain message to push some sort of political or social agenda. The lines are very blurred between fact and opinion. There is a crisis of truth in our world today. Here's a study that shows that the majority of young people, they believe that most people just look out for themselves. Most people try to take advantage of us, and the majority of people just can't be trusted. Now, why has trust declined? Young people have never had the luxury of ignorance. Everything is in front of us at all times. We can open up our phones and we can see what's happening in real time on the other side of the world, but with all of this connectedness comes distrust. We can see this in how people view presidents, at least in the United States. Now, people have always questioned those who are in power, but years ago, did they distrust them as much then as we do now? Years ago, much of the exposure people got to a president came through a vetted speech on the TV or radio, or an article written about them. This meant it was much easier to hide and cover up less than attractive parts of their lives. So from the perspective of someone who didn't have an inside look, didn't see the day-to-day, didn't see the humanness of that individual, they seem like stand-up guys worthy of our trust. But now everything is broadcasted, and part of this is exciting. We love to have the inside scoop. We love to feel like we are firsthand observers. But there are drawbacks to this as well, because not only do we get a front row seat to all the successes, we also get a front row seat to the failures. And when we see that those who are in power have the capability of failing us, or they don't share our views, our trust is shaken. And recently there has been failure after failure of religious leaders, institutions, governments broadcasted. When we distrust people, we end up distrusting their stories. Distrust bothers us. We care about authenticity, we care about what is real, and this simple fact shows us that truth matters. We can see that truth matters in an example of going to the doctor's office. Let's say you have had terrible migraines that have plagued you for years. You go to the doctor's office, they do some tests on you, and the doctor goes, you have a lack of vitamin D. What you need to do to fix your migraines is just go sit in the sun more. And you trust this doctor to give you a truthful diagnosis, so you try it out. Months and months go by where you're just sitting in your lawn chair in the sun, but the migraines are still there. So you call up the doctor's office and you say, hey, it's not working, and you find out the diagnosis was wrong, that the doctor actually lied to you. How would that make you feel? Almost like you've been scammed. See, truth matters just like an accurate diagnosis from pain matters. So we can know it matters through the feelings of distrust and the sickening feeling that we've been lied to. We care about authenticity. We care about what is real. We care about truth. So what is truth? what is truth? We can look it up and find that that which is true is in accordance with fact or reality. And there's something called the correspondence theory of truth, which says that that which is true corresponds with reality, meaning that if I make a claim that right now it is raining outside, if in reality there are water droplets falling from the sky, then it's raining, and my statement is true. This is honestly intuitive, but if I were to make the statement that the best way to live is to walk outside when it rains because it makes you happy, well, you could say, well, true for you, but not true for me. And in one sense, yes, this is because there are two types of truths that are important to understand: objective and subjective. Objective truth deals with the natural world, things outside of us. Think mathematics. Let's say 2 + 2 = 4. This is true because in reality, if you take 2 of anything and you add 2 more of something, you get 4. Think laws of physics. Gravity is true whether we believe it is or not. But subjective truths are true to an individual person. It's our lived experience in this world where we develop opinions and preferences. Say that I make the claim that Sour Patch Kids are the best flavored candy. Now, this might be true to me, but you may prefer something else. This is a subjective truth claim. This distinction is important, and honestly, it's intuitive, but we're just putting words to it here. There are objective things in this natural world like mathematics, the laws of physics, even history, morality, right and wrong, that are true and false, not a matter of personal opinion, but they're just how this world was created and works. And objective truth, it says something about the natural world and reality, therefore it is trustable. So truth matters. Truth is what corresponds with reality. Now, how do we know truth? The common response is that we come to know truth by observing the world around us and thinking about it. We like to think that we're rational people, meaning that the logic and the facts that we take in, they're easily sorted and figured out. But we are much more than people who just think. To be human is to also be emotional and to feel, to long for certain things, to desire things. It's important to understand that emotions, they say something true about us, but they might not be an accurate representation of the world around us. They're like signals, they're like lights on a dashboard as we respond to things in our lives. We like to think that we can trust ourselves, but what if I were to tell you that living your life just based upon your emotions, your desires, and how you feel, it might not be as reliable as you would expect? Here we have 2 gray circles on top of a gradient that goes from white to black. Now, are these 2 circles the same color? At first glance, we would say no, but watch this. As I move this circle from left to right, it almost gets lighter. See, in reality, these 2 circles are the exact same color. See, our brains forfeit truth for an exaggerated contrast difference. It's the same thing with our emotions. Our feelings can be positive or negative. The objective truth about this world can either seem darker or lighter based upon how we feel about them. But in reality, truth never changes. This is one of the reasons that stories that produce a lot of emotion, connect with our hearts, have more power than a statistic. There's been lots of studies that show that facts and logic don't actually change people's minds. What changes their beliefs are appeals to emotions and desires, pieces that make us human. But our emotions and how we feel can lead to biases, which can cloud our grasp of truth in reality. As we live our lives, we're building something like a mental puzzle of the world around us. It includes facts, ideas, opinions, beliefs about the world around us and our place in it. Let's say we learn some new ideas about what produces happiness. Well, we've already got an idea in our minds of, hey, this has made me happy before. This is what I've seen produce happiness in someone else's life. So we take the new pieces, we compare it to the mental image in our mind, and we see if it fits. And sometimes we take in information and our brain moves really, really quickly to either add it or remove it from the mental harmony puzzle based on emotions and feeling. This is kind of like what a bias is. And there are 3 biases that are important to talk about here: confirmation, self-serving, and hindsight bias. And they're best illustrated by a story. Let's say I'm sitting down and having a conversation with a friend. And we're sitting and talking, and all of a sudden he goes, dude, you're not gonna believe it. I met this girl, we went on a date, and it was incredible. And I go, well, how did you meet? Well, we actually met on Hinge. Her profile was so attractive. She is the most beautiful girl I have ever met. And I think to myself, amazing. But we know that people are always not as perfect as we would think they would be. So I ask, was everything perfect? And he goes, yeah, man, everything was perfect. Now, what is this? This is confirmation bias. The initial attraction that this girl was beautiful created an illusion that everything was perfect. So my friend only took in information that aligned with the previously held belief that she was perfect. A few months later, I check up on him again and I say, dude, how's it going? And he goes, man, it's rough. She is so stubborn and she never listens to me. My needs are never met and I'm supposedly always in the wrong. This is the self-serving bias. It's the tendency for us to focus inwardly only on our desires, on the things that make us feel good. This is the bias that protects us from any negative feedback. And about a month later, my friend and I meet again, and this time he's like, dude, I've got to break up with her. It's not working out. And you know what? I saw it all from the beginning. I saw the red flags from the first date. It just took me a while to admit it. This is the hindsight bias. It's the tendency for us to remember the past based upon what we know now instead of how it really happened. We see three biases here. The confirmation bias, to only take in information that affirms our beliefs. The self-serving bias, to take in information that only benefits us. And the hindsight bias, in which we change our view of the past based upon present circumstances. It's just like the illusion. Our emotions shape the way that we view reality. On top of biases, there's something called the illusory truth effect. And that means that we as humans, we tend to believe stuff based upon our overall exposure to it rather than its actual correspondence with reality. Meaning that if we are exposed, we mistake familiarity with something with the actual truthfulness of it. And this is why propaganda is one of the most powerful tools with controlling individuals. The more you expose them to something, even if it's false, they may mistake their familiarity with it actually being true. For all these reasons, people believe different things. In the result of so many people searching for happiness, their idea of the good life, so many different religions claiming that they have a way to eternal peace, it's easy to look out at all of the different opinions and beliefs and say, well, truth must be relative. It must be a matter of personal opinion. This is where we get the idea of live your truth. This desire actually comes from something noble, to not judge based upon first impressions. Because humanity is complex. Why should one culture impose on another culture what they're supposed to do? And there's a real reality that many of us, we don't actually know why we believe everything to be true. I've struggled with this, to say, so, well, if I don't really know, how could somebody else know? Truth just seems elusive. Let me share some inconsistencies with the idea that truth is relative. True for me, but not true for you. That is shown when our truths contradict each other. At the end of World War II, when the world discovered the atrocities committed by the Nazis in the Holocaust, no one looked up and said, well, they're just living their truth. Instead, the world turned and said it was evil, it was unjustified. But for someone who says that truth is relative, you can't say that because it's just your truth against another truth. This is called the reformer's dilemma. The Nazis even tried to defend their actions in court when they said, we were just following what our culture did. We were just following the people in power. But when they were convicted, they weren't convicted based upon, I feel that something is wrong. They were convicted against crimes against humanity, because there is right and wrong and a truth about that outside of how we feel, outside of cultural values. There's something outside of us that says we ought and we should act in a certain moral way. If truth is relative, we can never speak out against evil. We can never speak out against injustice. We can never call for social change, because who am I to impose my truth on somebody else? The only foundation is to declare that there is a objective moral standard outside of ourselves that we all ascribe to. Truth exists. It's objective, like mathematics, like the laws of physics, like morality. It's not a matter of personal opinion. Sure, we can feel things, we can have opinions, but truth is not based upon how we feel. We have lived experiences, so in a sense, we have our own truth, but I don't like using the term truth in a subjective sense. Let's call it what it is. We have lived experiences where we develop preferences and opinions, but what we have to do is we have to compare those feelings with reality. Now, how does all of this connect with doubt? Well, when I began to genuinely question my faith in Christianity, in Jesus, I was asking the questions of, is God good? That's a question about truth. Are the scriptures reliable? I was asking questions about reality. Now that we understand that truth matters, that it is that which corresponds with reality, how our emotions and biases can cloud how we view truth, now we can talk about how do we seek it. There are 5 questions that I have learned on my journey of seeking what is real and seeking what is true. Now, as we look through these, we're going to compare 2 ways of answering these questions. One is a feelings-based response that kind of just comes out of our gut, and then one is an evidence-based approach. The first question asks about support. Is there much supporting evidence? The feelings-based response simply says, is the evidence easy to recall? Have I heard this before? Can I find the answer easily? And if so, it holds weight. This approach says that something should be considered to be true if there's a lot of information about it or if it is easy to access. The second way is the evidence-based investigation. This is to look at corroborating evidence, peer-reviewed scientific articles, seek out unbiased reports, or use one's own memory. It's to look at the objective evidence, not our feelings. The second question talks of credibility. That's to ask, does it come from credible sources? The feelings-based response simply asks, is this source familiar? Have I seen something like this before? But the evidence-based investigation, it asks, is the source an expert or an eyewitness? Does the source have any competing interests in what they are sharing? The third asks a social consensus. Do other people believe it? Because we are more likely to believe something or feel confident if others share the same beliefs as us. Yet we must be careful not to mistake familiarity with truth. There's the feelings-based response, which says that this is simply to ask, does it feel familiar? If it does, it must be true. But the evidence-based investigation, it searches the databases and seeks objective realities to look for supporting statistics. The fourth question is about consistency, and that is this compatible with what I already objectively know to be true? The feelings response in this question simply says, does this make me stumble or feel uncomfortable? Is it difficult to process? Does it just not sit with how I feel? But an evidence-based investigation, it recalls one's general knowledge and says, is this a match or a mismatch? Not based upon how I feel, but the things that I know to be, again, objectively true. And the fifth question asks of coherence. Does it tell a good story? Not just one of emotion, but is the story consistent? Feelings response is, does this have an emotional appeal? Does it make me feel empathy or disdain? Does it flow smoothly? But the evidence-based investigation, it says, do the elements of a story fit logically together? The feelings-based response is easily tainted by emotions and bias, but the evidence-based investigation, it cares about reality, what is true in the objective world. What can we learn from all of this? Well, truth matters. It is that which corresponds with reality, and we seek it by asking good questions based upon reality, the objective world, not just how we feel. So be curious, because truth matters. Would you journey with me as we seek truth together?